Hi everyone, this is J. Hope Suis from Hope Boulevard, and I am continuing on my video series of reading from my book, Midlife Joyride, Loving the Single Lane. We are on Chapter 5. We are actually on the second half of Chapter 5. The previous video, the first part was we're on the first date. So we talked about all things about getting ready for the first date, where to go, ideas for things to do, some just general tips on how to get ready for the first date. And we're picking up where it says the conversation. You mean we have to talk? I am one of those people who can talk a lot. I have been told by more than one person that it's easy to have a conversation with me, and that makes me smile. The danger in talking too much, however, is revealing things about yourself sooner than you should. Or on the flip side, learning things about your date that will forever stay stuck in your head. I went out with a guy one time who talked about government listening devices and our light bulbs and believing in aliens. Hey, if you don't look like Tommy Lee Jones, do not talk Men in Black to me. I once had the most perplexing conversation while on a date with a police officer. He was a fine-looking guy. Super sweet. He met my testosterone level. Or so I thought. Some girls have a height requirement. Some have a W-2 requirement. I just like my men to be men. And if we'd have just stopped there and stared into each other's eyes, we still might be together. But he had to start talking. His first admission to me was that he was afraid of heights. Well, I'm afraid of heights too, so I really can't say anything about that. Then the talk turned to travel, and he mentioned that he never stays at a hotel with a door to the outside, even with an inside hallway. And he always props up a chair against the doorway, the doorknob. This guy has a badge and carries a gun for a living. I'm a single woman who has traveled alone or with small children, and even I don't go that far. His list of phobias would fill up an evening on the Discovery Channel. I can't be with a guy if I'm braver than he is. So much for testosterone. There is a fine line between talking too much about random stuff and making at least the first few conversations count regarding the exchange of information. Here are some tips for topic conversations on the first date. Number 1, start simple. Some of this information you may already know from emailing or talking before the date, but find out some basics. What kind of job do they have? Do they enjoy it? If they hate their job, will they complain and be miserable every workday? What are their living arrangements? With today's economic environment, living accommodations are more creative. Roommates, living with family. Sometimes they still live with their ex-partner. It's not a requirement that they live alone, but their ex should have a different address. It's okay to talk about their family. You don't need a genealogy report, but it's quite helpful to understand their family dynamic. Are they close, emotionally and physically? Most people don't mind talking about their family. If your date hasn't spoken to their mom in years or estranged from their kids, that might be a sign you need to move slowly to eliminate any red flag concerns. And sometimes there's two sides to every story, and I get that, okay? Sometimes we just have to decide that someone is unhealthy and toxic and we have to remove them from our lives. But you do need to find out a little bit more information, because it really can be a bad sign if they have no contact at all with their family. So just be sure that you try to find that out. You don't have to write them off immediately, but that is an important concern. Have some fun. You absolutely should talk about what the two of you enjoy doing. If one of you enjoys hiking in the mountains and the other is afraid of heights, that might be an issue. If one of you is an avid gardener and eats only organic food and the other has Domino's on speed dial, your lifestyle and health choices may not line up. Now, don't get me wrong, you don't have to be twins. Some variety and being open to new experiences is a good thing. Just make sure your differences are not at opposite ends of the continuum. What are your relationship goals? This is a sensitive question, and I would never recommend asking if they're looking to marry on the first date, but it is a good idea to know what their end game is. Do they want to date casually? Are they interested if they meet the right person to be in a committed relationship? If they are divorced, do they ever see themselves getting married again? One of the worst mistakes people make is assuming they know what the other person wants out of the dating process. So many individuals, especially women, stay with someone hoping the dating will turn into a relationship. And when the guy never even wanted that from the beginning. There is no wrong answer. We all have the right to our own path, but we deserve to know the truth about what our date's expectations are. These are just suggestions and are not meant to be printed out and checked off one by one. For every question you ask, you should be willing to answer back in kind, plus any more they may ask of you. No one person should dominate the conversation. The idea is for information to flow evenly. Be respectful in your responses and in your reactions to their responses. Don't get all drama-filled and upset if they say something you don't like. Be careful if the conversation starts heading into a sexual direction. I'm not here to judge, and what two consenting adults choose to do is on them. But introducing this topic on the first date is asking for things to unravel quickly. I have an entire chapter waiting down the road to discuss how sex plays into our sim lives, and there's definitely a place for it, but not on the first date. Ladies, if you open that door, most men will walk through it. I know it's fun to flirt, and if there's chemistry, it may seem like all good fun, but I still believe it's a bad idea. And for you guys, just don't go there. One of two things will happen. Either the girl will believe that sex is the only reason you asked her out, or she'll call your bluff, and then you have to decide what kind of girl and date you really want to have. So how did it go? There are dates when both parties click and know immediately there is mutual attraction. Those dates often end with the planning of a second date. If that were the norm, however, there would be no need for this book. Most of the time, both are trying to decipher what the other is thinking and trying to determine themselves what they want. Body language is a big key here. Did your date look at you in the eyes when talking? Was she hunched over and turned away, or fully opened and engaged, facing you? While walking, did he touch your shoulder or back, or walk a few steps ahead or behind? I met a guy once to walk downtown and grab a bite to eat. I was anticipating a leisurely stroll, taking in the sights and sounds of my beautiful city. He proceeded to power walk down the sidewalk, weaving in and around people like he was heading to a finish line. Maybe he was just hungry, and we should have eaten first. But after chasing him around town, I got the idea he just wanted the date to be over. So it was. Saying goodbye at the end of the first date ranks pretty high in stressful, awkward moments. Each person is calculating the interest level while simultaneously trying to get a feel for what the other person is thinking. There is the "it was great meeting you" closing sentence that oftentimes seems obligatory whether you mean it or not. There is that split second when a decision must be made on whether to end the date with a handshake, ugh, leaning in sideways for a half hug, or go for that mystical first date first kiss. I have no rules here, as each scenario is unique. If you decide to go the cautious route and wait for that first kiss, that's perfectly fine. But if the chemistry is sparking on both sides and it feels like the right thing to do, go for it. I will only caution you to be respectful of each other and not let things get too heated or out of hand. Having a little mystery at the end of the first date is a good thing. So, speaking of chemistry, what is it and how important is it? First, let's start by exploring what chemistry really is and means in a relationship. We hear all the time how much chemistry two people had or didn't have. But what exactly does that mean? Where does it originate? What causes it? There is a recordable and actual chemical reaction to falling in love. It includes racing heart, flushed skin, sweaty palms, and a loss of appetite and focus. Sounds to me like a lot like the flu. In reality, it's the release of dopamine, the pleasure chemical, and another chemical that I can't even begin to pronounce. Norepinephrine. Anyway, together they form a love cocktail, the ultimate happy hour. And when served up, it is pretty powerful and mimics the same characteristics as elation and adrenaline. It is not a tangible substance. It is elusive, floating around in the atmosphere like that pretty blue-green argon gas, just waiting for the right two people to ignite it. Can we set ourselves up to miss it, or is it beyond our control? What factors do our background, experiences, and beliefs play in our own personal chemical energy that surrounds us? Can we reformulate it, or is it just who we are? I do not understand the mechanics of it, why it works sometimes and other times not. I guess that's just part of the beauty. If we could break it down and recreate it in a lab, then a generic form would be sold at Walgreens. And I'd be first in line. Would we want that? Sometimes I think we would. Sometimes I think it would be highly beneficial to find the right guy, slip us both a dopamine Mickey into our lemon water, and the rest would be history. I know, it sounds like Frankenstein. I would somehow manage to screw it up and offer the merry choking guy in the next booth a sip of my water, and, well, chemistry is not something I should play with. I was never really good with it in school anyway. There are some who offer advice and hints on how to artificially simulate this feeling to try to trick yourself or your date into thinking it's there. One suggestion is to ride a roller coaster together. Actually, this wouldn't work for me at all. The sweaty palms and nausea would not be the dopamine. It would be that I needed Dramamine. Another idea is to walk on a high bridge over rushing water. The physiological response to both activities mimic the love cocktail, and whomever you are with will associate this feeling with you. The problem with this approach is you have to move to Six Flags or Niagara Falls to stay in love. Is chemistry absolutely necessary? The butterflies and the fireworks? It wears off anyway, right? Just like that argon gas, those glow sticks do not glow indefinitely. At some point, you still need a flashlight. Can we just jump to that stage? I wish I knew the answer to that. I am sure there have been moments in my life that would have gone smoother if my decisions were more logic-based and less elation-based. If I could just shake off that twinge in the pit of my stomach and go straight for responsible and reasonable. What, do they have to be exclusive? I hope not. Should you have it on your first date? What if you don't? I believe when we meet someone for the first time, we make an assessment in the first 10 or 15 minutes, probably less, whether or not we feel an attraction. In fact, in popular speed dating events, there is only a 5-minute window to determine if you want to move forward. My belief in the goosebumps may have me in the minority because 59% of us do not expect chemistry to show up until the second date. What? My problem with that is, if there's no chemistry on the first date, what prompts the second date? Well, as it turns out, a couple of things. Consideration. This is the I've been there too perspective. Every first date is not going to be our most outstanding moment. Many times we are nervous and can't relax enough to truly be ourselves. The flow of the pheromones can be interrupted by apprehension. Feeling bad physically can also muffle the chemistry vibes. Today, more people understand the pressures of a first date because more of us are out there in the thick of things. They are willing to give it one more shot if personality and activity preferences line up and wait for the chemistry to fall in line. Curiosity. Life is evolving around us constantly, and either we grow with it or we grow stagnant. The same person who lit your fire a year ago or even a couple of months ago might not do it for you now, and vice versa. Our ideals shift with time and experiences. The people who fit into them should also shift. The initial meeting may not produce a Roman candle explosion, but maybe the fuse is just a little longer. 35% admitted they fell in love with someone they did not initially find attractive. First impressions are important, but we do not have to cement that impression in our hearts. By keeping an open mind and trusting their instincts, people are finding the second or third date brings out qualities and interests that supersede the first reaction. When this takes place, the dynamite happens at just the right moment. I will concede that chemistry does not always have to show up on the first date, but it does eventually have to show up. Personally, I do think that chemistry is extremely necessary. That dopamine-induced racing heart, flushed skin, and sweaty palms. It is those fireworks that light the way through the dark moments that can tear down a relationship. It is an intimacy that forms the unyielding bond that holds it all together. Of course, I want reliability and trustworthy. I just want the steady hand that holds mine to also be sweaty. Just a little bit. First dates are challenging and the scenarios are endless. Every person and unique. Every person and every plan is unique. The stage is set. Own it and set out to be fabulous. The most important key is to be yourself. You want to balance learning about them with fun. If you are having fun and being yourself, and there is no way the right person will not be enthralled. Watching someone truly have a great time is magnetic. They will be drawn closer to you and hope the magic will transfer over to them. If you do not have any fun, the odds are there will not be a second date. Relax. It's perfectly okay to talk about the weather, the food, drinks you are having, the big game, or the season finale bomb you just watched. Make sure you walk away with a better understanding of the ideals, values, and character of the person with whom you just spent 2 or 3 hours with. That is an extremely successful first date. Footnote. Congratulations. You have the first date under your belt. The majority of people know by the end of the first date if they want another one, though it may be tricky to know for sure how the other person feels. There is a stupid, in my opinion, rule that went around the dating world a few years back that there should be a 3-day waiting span between the first date and any additional contact. I totally disagree. If a guy waits 3 days to call me back, I will assume by the middle of day 2 that he is not interested. I do not believe in playing coy, hard to get, or being lazy. If you like someone, let them know. You don't have to blow up their phone or stalk their Facebook page, but a simple text the next day lets the other person know you are still around and thinking about him or her. And if you want to see him again, let them know or ask them. You will have to face the reality from time to time that even though you are really into someone, the other person may not feel the same way, and vice versa. It is very difficult to admit there is no interest. If you are the one who is not interested, please be honest. You don't have to tell the other person at the end of the first date if that's too uncomfortable for you. However, if they continue to call or text you or ask you out, you should be polite and sincere and honest and just tell them, I'm sorry. I hope they will be upfront and tell you, and not duck and weave hoping you go away. Do not chase after someone who does not want to be caught. That's really important because I feel like sometimes, it's like we get caught up in the cycle, and I've been there, where you don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. And so you don't want to tell them you don't want to see them again, and you kind of maybe sort of hope they'll go away. But that's not fair, and that's not cool. Everybody has feelings, and everybody deserves to know the truth. If you're not interested in somebody, just tell them. You don't have to do it in person if it makes you uncomfortable. At the stage of a first date, you still should be able to do it by text. Just say, thanks for a nice evening or a nice afternoon. I don't think that you're a good match for me. I wish you good luck. It's something very simple, and then just leave it at that. Because you would want the same in return. If you like somebody and they don't, but you continue to text them and they answer your text, but then they don't ever want to see you, and then you just back and forth, and then days can go by and you're miserable and unsure about what's going on. So you would want that to be done for you. So you need to extend that courtesy to them. We have covered just about all the bases of a first date and beyond. If the first one is not successful, flip back to the beginning of the chapter and try again. If one date turns into 2 and 2 turns into 3, then we have something exciting going on. Pretty soon the date turns into dating, and we have a whole new road to travel on. Let's see what we find there. All right, that's the end of chapter 5. Chapter 6 goes into dating, where I give some tips and hints on actually when you start dating someone and consider yourself in a relationship. So I hope this was helpful. I hope that you have some really good ideas and on how to manage and survive the first date. Thanks for watching, and check my next video out. This is J. Hope Suis from Hope Boulevard.